How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to create a two-dimensional shooting star wallpaper in Blender and Photoshop. It's going to be very easy to do and won't take but a few minutes. Let's get going. Alright, so first thing we're going to need to do is delete everything in the default scene. So press A to select everything, X to delete it. Then we're going to press 7 to tab or to move into the top-down view. And then we're going to add a circle, a mesh circle that is. And we're going to add it with 128 vertices. And then I'm going to call this the shooting portion of the star. Shooting star. We're going to tab into edit mode, and we're going to select a lot of these vertices already. And we're going to, just like that, we're going to press Control E, and then we're going to say unsubdivide. So now we've got this one really smooth looking part here, the star trail, and then we've got one that isn't so smooth. Then we're going to select one of these vertices right here. We're going to press O on the keyboard to enable proportional editing. Then we're going to go up here to random fall off, that is, from this menu. Now we're going to grab this and we're going to move it back. And as you can see, we're already getting the shooting star trail here as we move it back. And you can play around with this to make it look as good as you'd like it to. So I'm going to go like that. And then we can see here there's a little bit of few oddities. I'm going to turn off proportional editing. I'm just going to move these around a little bit. Let's see. I'm just going to delete these vertices and then connect this one here to that one there by pressing the F key. Get a straight line. And with this vertice, well, all of these really, I'm just going to delete those. And then I'm going to take this last one and this one. I'm going to connect those together as well with F. Then we're just going to move some of this stuff around here until it looks good. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to move this long tail in just a little bit here. There we go. Well, let's see. Maybe I'm just going to move this down a little bit. It'll look kind of like this, you know. For the sake of moving this tutorial along, we'll just say that's going to be our shape. For you, you can play around with it until it looks as good as you'd like it to look. But that's the shape of our shooting star. Now what we're going to do is we are going to fill this in by going into edit mode. We're going to select everything. Then we're going to press F to fill it in. Now we got a shape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add another circle. Still 128 vertices, but I'm going to move the radius of it slightly down. And we're just going to put it right there in the center. Then we're going to edit it, and then we're going to press F to fill it in. Then we're going to press 1 to go to the front view, and we're going to extrude it up just a little bit. That way we can prevent Z fighting, which is something I learned about in another video, where if two different meshes are on the exact same Z-axis and they overlap, then it isn't going to know which one to draw. All right. So we've got our shooting star now. I'm going to call this shooting star. And this is the inner star. Now let's just give this a material. We're going to do it very quickly and easily. We're going to make a new material for the inner star. And what we're going to do is just give it some emission. I'm going to make it like an orange color, kind of like that. I'm going to give it an emission strength of 2. Let's go over to our final view to look see what it looks like. It's going to look like that. And then this one here, we're going to do another material. For this one, I'm going to make it kind of like that. I'm going to give it like a blue color. Maybe kind of like that. Maybe a little bit darker. Not very purple. I'd kind of like it like that. Yeah, like that. So now we got this shape. And the emission strength here, I'm also going to have it be about 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make some stars in the background. These are going to be very simple as well. We're just going to add a new plane. I'm going to make a new collection here. Call this stars in the background. And we're going to take this plane over here. We're going to call this background star. And we're going to go into edit mode. We are going to subdivide this. So you can press Control E and subdivide it, or you can just use your search button. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select we're going to box select, and we're going to hold down Shift and select just these corners. And then we're going to scale them in a little bit. And hey, look at that. We've got a star shape. Now we're going to scale the whole thing down a little bit, like that. And we want to distribute these. Now, you might think that the easiest way to do that is to just distribute them like this. And you'd be right, it is the easiest way, but we aren't going to do it like that because I'm going to teach you a different way. So you got to have Blender 2.9 2 or 2.93 to be able to do this. It's the one that has geometry nodes. So we are going to hide this background star here. We're going to hide it from both the render and the viewport. Then we're going to add another plane. We're going to scale this plane up in edit mode, that is. Just like that. And we're going to add a geometry node to it. So go to the geometry nodes tab, press new. Now I got this geometry node, input and output. And we're going to add 4 new nodes to this. 4, 3. I have them written down, so I'll show you. First one's going to be the point distribute. So now we've got all these different points. We aren't probably going to have quite so many when we're all done here, but that's fine to start with. Then we're going to do an attribute randomize. To add these, by the way, I'm just pressing Shift A on the node group. So there we go. Then we're going to add a point scale node. Point scale. And then finally, a point instance node. So, attribute randomize. The first thing we're going to be doing here is we're just going to type in any name we want for this. I'm just going to call it X. And it's going to be 0.1 to 1. So that's just going to create a random value between 0.1 and 1 for each of these points that we're creating here, point scale. And we are going to scale these points down by this factor of x. So choose attribute, factor x. So whatever you typed in here, make sure it matches over here. Finally, last thing you do, I'm just going to choose background star. And hey, we got a lot of stars. We've got probably more stars than you want. And the way that we can fix that is we're just going to take our density and take it down a little bit. Yeah, just like that. Play around with the density and the seed. Get something that you think that you like. You can always apply this later on as well, and we will actually. I'm going to turn up the minimum and maximum sizes. Zero point 0.4 looks pretty good. 1 looks pretty good, I'd say. And now we've got something. So I'm just going to play around with the seed just a little bit until I get one that isn't too many in the middle. Now, if you want to move these around yourself, you can apply this geometry node. I'll show you how that works. You just, on your modifiers tab, you click it, click apply, and then you're done. So now we've got this same star node, or this same star object, I mean, all over the place. Now we're going to go randomly distribute it. If you'd like an easy way to select any of these individual stars, highlight them with your mouse and press L. That will do something called select linked. Well, also make sure that you aren't like adding to ones that already are there. So I'm just going to move these around a little bit. You know, if the geometry nodes give you what you want, then you don't need to do that. But now that we've got some stars on this plane, I'm just going to call this background stars. I have really awesome names for things today, apparently. All right, so I'm going to move. Whoa. I'm not going to move all of that around. I'm just going to move this one around, make sure it doesn't like overlap. And there we go. Now we're going to make a material for this one. I'm just going to make a new material here. I'm going to set the emission to white. And, well, that should be good. Now, finally, the last thing we got to do in Blender here is we need a camera, and we're going to add a brand new camera in the top-down mode. Then we're going to press Control-Alt-0 on the numpad, and that'll bring our camera in just like this. So it's looking down on the scene now. If you'd like, you can switch it over to an orthographic view as well. But it may not matter. If you do an orthographic, just choose orthographic in the camera lens and then move out the scale. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go to the render settings here, or the output properties, I mean. And then for our resolution, I'm going to make this 1080 by 1920, so like a phone aspect ratio. Now let's see what it looks like when we just render it. Doesn't look like much right now. You can't actually see it, but it looks just like this. So how do we make that look a little bit more interesting? We're going to turn on this thing called Bloom. So you turn on Bloom, then you're going to go into the materials, and we're going to crank up the emission strength. Now you can see that the star looks quite a bit brighter. See how there's kind of a trail? Like if I really crank it up, you could see there's like a gradient behind it. So that's what Bloom does for you. So we're going to crank that up, crank this up a bit. Not too much, but just kind of. Then emission strength for these guys, for the stars, I'm just going to give it a little bit of glow. So then we're going to go into the world settings, and we're going to make the color of the background black. And now you can see that it's looking pretty good. There's still some kind of hard edges there. You can work those out. Let me see if I can't. There we go. So anyway, you got something just like this, and you want to render it. And we're going to take this and put it into Photoshop to give it a finishing touch. So what we're going to do there is we're going to go to the Layer Properties tab, and we're going to check some of these boxes over here to give us a few more render passes. We're going to check Emission, and we're going to check Bloom. So now when you go to render it, this is the combined render pass. We've got all of our effects, the emission, the bloom, all together, just like that. But if you take a look over here in the Select Pass dropdown, you can see here's our bloom pass. It looks like this. So it's just kind of foggy, glowy stuff. And then if you look at the emit, it's very, very sharp, rasterized vector type of stuff. So we're going to save both of those. So this one is the emit pass. And this one here is the bloom pass. All right, after you have exported your bloom pass and your emit pass, now you go into Photoshop and open up the bloom pass. This will work for Photoshop, GIMP, Affinity Photo, just about any editing program that you're going to use for compositing images will work for this one. It doesn't need to be Photoshop, but I have Photoshop, so that's what I'm going to use. So I've got the emit pass right here, and I'm going to drag that into Photoshop. So now we're going to have two layers. The emit is going to be over the bloom. So here we are. Here's the bloom, the emit. You can see they completely overlap each other. And we're going to change the blending mode of the emit to be screen. So now it's going to look like this. This is the bloom, and now we've got the bloom and the emit combined together to create this interesting looking effect, which looks very similar to the combined pass, I might add. But then what we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to add a gradient to the entire thing. And for the gradient, I'm going to choose kind of a bright blue background, maybe like this. And I'm just going to overlay this background entirely like that. So it's covering up the entire image, and now I'm going to set the blend mode of this gradient to color dodge. And now you can see it gives a really interesting looking effect here. It's kind of posterized. And the star is very, very bright. So that's kind of what I wanted to have happen here. And because of the bloom, you can see that it really emphasizes the bloom portion of it. But I think this looks a little bit too busy. It looks a little bit too bright. So we're gonna make this a little bit less bright by adding a layer mask. So what we do down here is on the Layers tab, you can say Add Layer Mask. So we've added a layer mask. It's completely white. It's allowing everything through right now. Then we're going to get our gradient tool again. I'm going to go to the foreground to transparent gradient. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that transparency and reverse and dither, that all those are checked. And we are going to go up here to the radial gradient. And then I'm going to drag out from the center of the star. And now what we've got is kind of a really nice effect here where the star is glowing very brightly. And then the surrounding area is starting to fade out a little bit. These stars are lit up and the light's bouncing off of them a little bit. It gives that effect anyways. And so that's what I wanted to show you today. Thanks so much for watching, guys.